I've spent a day in the mostly new 2025 MINI Cooper John Cooper Works, and I have a lot to say, but I'm going to boil it down to 3 positives and 3 negatives. Before I start, take a sip of this. It's been a long day, and I'm in Savannah, Georgia. I'm enjoying a little oat milk flat white, and it is a beautiful town. And there's, if you look around, if you find them, there's some great roads out into the countryside as well. So I've had a chance to drive this car in a number of different environments, obviously in an urban environment, on the highways, and in the twisties. And this is the second time I've driven this car. The first time was in the winter, very cold in Chicago, limited amount of time with the car. So, I called it very much a first drive, sort of first impressions. But today I've got just a bit more time in the car and a bit more opinion. So let's start off with 3 negatives. So let's save the good stuff for the last and start straight away with 3 things that I think are downgrades. And I don't know how else to put it. Number 1, there is no manual option. And that is a massive downgrade for this car. And it's not just because it's manual and everybody likes manuals. I know I do. But, in a lot of ways, that's just such a big part of Mini's soul. That interactivity, that feeling like you're one with the car. We don't have it without the manual to the degree that we did before, and that's a shame. And there's just no other way to put it. It's a big loss for this car, and in a lot of ways, a big loss for the Mini brand. And I know full well that a lot of folks at Mini would love to see it return. They wish they had been able to retain it, but won't go into it here. But they have not, and I can only judge what I'm driving here, and it is poor for not having it. It's just simply a loss. And I mean, there are quite a few people out there. There's a segment that simply won't even look at this car now without a manual. And that's a shame, because we'll get to it in a little bit. It's pretty good. So we've got the lack of a manual as number 1. Number 2, they have taken money out of the interior. What does that mean? Well, there are parts of this interior now that feel worse than they did before. Not all of it. And I think this, this is my opinion. I think the fabric dash actually is not bad. In fact, I kind of like it. I think the Veskin seats, the vegan leather, if you will, are great. In fact, I think they're better than leather traditionally has been. Sans the lounge leather, RIP, which is amazing. Normal Mini leather never just felt this good, and I'm sure this will last quite a bit longer as well. And so great, right? But what they've taken out of the interior in terms of quality is very evident, and that is all this plastic down here and on the door card. And so what you're left with this impression of a car that feels a little cheaper. And it's unfortunate, because I actually like what Mini's done to a degree with other elements of the car. I mean, like I said, the fabric is cool. I think it's an interesting shift for a brand like Mini, and others are following. Lucid has a very similar perspective there. BMW is following that trend as well. So it's not like Mini's on an island here. Others are doing it, and I think it's cool to see Mini lead the way. I think it'll get better. I'm still not convinced black fabric is going to look great in dusty environments, but we'll figure that out eventually. But I think the net of it is the interior has a lower perceived quality than it did before because of the cheap plastics. The third big downgrade here is lack of customization, and that's really evident in the interior among many places. There is quite simply no options in the interior. There's nothing. If you order a JCW, you have one interior choice. That is it. It is black with some red stitching and some sort of kind of red checkerboard stuff going on over here, which looks questionable. That's all you can do. And on the outside, you really only have color and wheels. There's nothing else. And so in my mind, the JCW especially was such a canvas to express yourself in. Mini's always been about personalization, and wow, it's just gone with this car. So 3 big downsides to where Mini has taken, a lot of the Mini range, but, I'll just call out, obviously, the JCW specifically here. But that said, there are 3 big improvements that I want to dwell on, because I think the net of it is that they make this a better car. So it's going to sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, but one of them is the transmission. The DCT is improved. And so, what does that mean? Well, it's improved in shift quality. They're much much more fluid and really subtle in the shift, but not seamless, certainly, but nonetheless, you feel the difference. It's more predictive than it has been before. So if I have it in auto and there's a curve coming up, it knows there's a curve. It will actually downshift for me ahead of that curve. I think critically, the way that go-kart mode and the way that, and I'll pop it into go-kart mode here real quick, and the way that S mode and the transmission work together, it's really nice, and it's been that way before, but I think it's a little bit more pronounced here. And so what do I mean by that? Go-kart mode will hold on to shifts a little longer, and then you put it in S mode, sport mode, in the transmission, and the shifts are quicker, and sort of the algorithm or where it shifts is different as well. And so you get a very responsive sort of feeling out of this transmission. And that leads me to the other part of the transmission upgrade. And this is, I guess, I don't want to damn with faint praise here at all, but it's responsive. When I click the paddle, it responds. And, the first JCW Cooper of this generation I drove, there were some issues there for sure. I think that has gotten better. Not sure if it's been through a software update. I'm not sure if it was just an early build, but I've driven this pretty substantially, and I have not seen, or I've not felt that hesitation that I had felt in the past, where it's literally a second after I click a paddle and there's a gear change. They're pretty much instantaneous. So big shift, no pun intended, from what I had experienced in the past. And in a lot of ways, if you're going to take the manual away, then make the automatic that you're giving me responsive and engaging. And while it's not perfect, it is good. At the very least, the paddles themselves aren't that great. They're just plastic, but let's stick with the good stuff for now. So that's a big positive. And so those are two positives. The final one is kind of the most obvious, and that's power. And it's not horsepower, but it's torque. MINI has upped the torque to 280 in this car. And what that does is, in driving, especially sort of in everyday driving, it gives you the type of mid-range power that's just fantastic. It allows you to merge onto highways, with the power that I would normally feel out of a JCW Countryman. JCW Countryman or Clubman from last generation, where it had 331 foot-pound of torque, and that mid-range power was very noticeable. You were gone. And in this car, because of its lightweight, it's got, yes, only 280 foot-pound of torque, but it feels as rapid in that mid-range. It's really nice. Couple that with a transmission that's responsive, and you've got a really nice upgrade. And having driven the previous car very recently, I can tell you it is noticeable. That torque difference is substantial, and it is noticeable, seat of the pants. And I'm going to give you a bonus upgrade, and this is a little close to my heart. Maybe it's just me, but Minis have had, I would say, mediocre to poor throttle response for this previous generation, and even the R56 for that matter. Meaning, when I tip in with the throttle, there is sort of a lag. It's like the car is figuring out what you want it to do, even though it's very obvious what you're trying to do. That has changed dramatically. There is a responsiveness to this car that I have not felt before. Is it perfect? No, but as I tap this thing, you can feel it like take off. I mean, you can feel the response. Like, that's the sort of thing that you'd expect, and you would have expected all in all the generations of JCWs and all Minis. It really wasn't there to the same degree. So there's a responsiveness here that, as you can see, is nice. I love it. It's what you want. This is a car that should feel like a go-kart, and therefore it should be very responsive. Now, is it perfect? No, it is not. I want to be clear about that. Could it be more responsive? Yes, it could. No question about it. But it is way better than where it was in the past. So that is a quick look at a list, more than anything, of what's good, what's bad in this new car. And if you zoom out, what Mini's done here is they have listened to consumers in almost all cases and tried to improve this car based on that feedback. And they've done a really good job. Yes, there's some misses here. The interior, as I mentioned, there's some issues, big issues that people have without the manual transmission, of course. And so, there's some things here that I think give potential buyers pause, and especially that transmission. I mean, quite honestly, I would have a hard time buying this car personally without that manual. Would I eventually get over it? Perhaps. You know, perhaps if there was something that pushed me into it. And you know, before I drove this car today, I would say that's absolutely not going to happen. Now that I've put some miles on this new JCW, I'm starting to sort of get the feel of what it's delivering and really the value prop. Mini OS 9, you know, it's a little complex at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's really nice. You know, it's got a full ADAS system here. It's got a safety offerings that we've never seen in Minis before. And all that points to a car that it's just easier to live with. It's a car that, you know, you can put miles on and you're more comfortable at the end of the trip. You know, it is now, I think, you know, broadening kind of the spectrum of what you can do with this car from a livability standpoint. And that's not a bad thing, as long as they don't lose sight of what makes a JCW. And I don't think they have, with that one exception of the manual. So if you can get past that, I really think what we have here is a noticeable step forward by Mini for the JCW sub-brand. And it's nice to be behind the wheel of this car, I have to say. It's been a long time coming with this new generation, and now really spending some time, you know, I think it's given me a little bit of hope in terms of where Mini's headed, and a little bit of better understanding, more than anything, around, I think, what Mini has been trying to do with this new generation. Is it perfect? No. But given what we have today in the automotive world in 2025, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be fun, and it is. If you like this video, please give us a like. As always, subscribe. We have a ton more coming.